Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. The 21st day of February 2025. Sudan is resetting ties with Kenya over what we can consider diplomatic recklessness. I want you to watch this video. That is a dripping, ironical scene. Arrival of Rapid Support Forces Deputy Commander Hemedi's brother Abdul Rahim Habnalo Dagalo at Nairobi's KICC to help establish a parallel government. These forces in Kenya, these forces in Sudan, are actually accused of horrible sins, unspeakable human rights violation, where women choose death over rape. And this is what is being spoken. Yet the same Kenyan government just last week pledged $1 million for Sudanese people for peace, and is now rolling the red carpet for the rebel leaders. Of course, for those who may not understand the context of this, there are two opposing warring factions in Sudan. There is Sudan Armed Forces, SAF, under the control of Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and paramilitary rapid forces, RSF, and its allies, collectively the Janjaweed coalition under the Janjaweed leader Hemedi. So Kenya had been at the center of mediating for peace between these two nations. In this event, what was really at play? A charity for the victims, but a podium for perpetrators. The charity for the victims is that Kenya has been giving space to refugees from Sudan who were pushed out of their country just because of that violence, and has been a safe haven for those victims. But again, those who are alleged to have perpetrated those human rights violations are being given a podium in our country. That called a presser, but there was a last-minute call from Kenyan military bosses and the foreign envoys from the US, where that was actually cancelled. The presser, even yesterday, there was another a poster that emerged, another invite for this, for the press briefing, and they later said that they were not calling a press briefing to form a parallel government, but I don't know what they wanted to communicate. It is actually explained that the Kenyan military bosses were a bit uncomfortable with the operations and activities of the paramilitary forces in the country, questioning the motive and, of course, raising an alarm that it is in a bad taste. And some things, there are things we do that we want to explain them and make corners with some diplomatic statements, but we are not truthful to our act. The Kenyan military would actually ask, and I would want us to just reason this way. At the time there was Gen Z protest, how would Kenya President William Ruto feel if you are fighting, you are going to the streets to meet Gen Zs? Then that movement, a civilian group forms some force. And that force is fighting your police and your military in the streets. Then the next day you hear that that force that you are fighting here is calling a press briefing somewhere in Uganda or in Sudan for the same. It is not in bad taste. It is not in good taste. And it is, and in fact, as Kenya tries to posture as those who are vouching for peace in Sudan, that doesn't come out as the true position. We are not coming out as really we wish well for Sudan. We made similar blunders in 2023, just days to the DRC, in DR Congo, when we gave a platform for Congo Nile Alliance, which is also another rebel group in Nairobi here, to run their stuff. This time round, things did not go well. Sudan is reported to have recalled its ambassador to Kenya, Kamal Jabara, days after Nairobi hosted the sanctioned leaders of the Rapid Support Forces for discussions on forming a parallel government. Diplomatic sources have confirmed. Sudanese Vice President Malik Ageru issued a thin-veiled warning to President Ruto, cautioning that his interference will come at a cost. Quoting a Swahili proverb, he says, "Those who do not listen to their elders shall have a broken leg." Now, let's look at, I want us to look at the tone of the letter. An open letter to young brother Rais William Ruto of Kenya. Those who do not listen to their elders shall have a broken leg. The AU principles were authored to maintain peace and tranquility among the member states of the Union. In a clear violation of that, Kenyan President William Ruto deliberately and undisclosed hate to Sudan, indulge in practice that amount to violation of these principles. On 10th, and I want us to get his part, because there is something he's saying there that I would want, it actually exposes the real thing why this is happening. On 10th to 14th June 2023, the meeting of IGAD head of states in Djibouti proposed a roadmap that allows intervention of forces. Moreover, after the closing of the same session, he, William Ruto, bilaterally announced a 4-country mechanism, that is Sudan, that is South Sudan, Djibouti, Uganda, and Kenya, of which he included Kenya as the chairman. This suggestion was neither ratified by the Sudanese government nor agreed upon by the IGAD Assembly. Sudan's legitimate grievances fell on deaf ears, showcasing a disregard for its sovereignty. The same president, in the extraordinary meeting of IGAD on 10th September 2024 to discuss Somalia held in Uganda, further inserted the Sudanese matters into discussions pertaining Somalia and unexaggerated tensions by proposing the sanctioned leader of genocidal RFS to sit on Sudan chair and represent Sudan, a clear violation of the UN and AU principles that does not allow non-state holders to participate in state meetings. Let me explain this in a more layman's language. I wrote this letter. I read this letter, and I could feel I could feel the voices that the Sudan governments are raising. There was a meeting in Uganda, and they are vouching for peace. There are two forces. There is Sudan Armed Forces and there is paramilitary, RFS. So Ruto was in Uganda, and this is a situation where you take that barbecue, like for example, Kenya is in Haiti. So barbecue is summoned in Colombia or probably in the US, and barbecue is representing Haiti, while Haiti has a transnational government, transnational council, a national council of government. So you wonder, you see the way Kenya aligned with the paramilitary leader and even gave him a seat there. Okay. Undermining the existing government aside, in several speeches and derogatory statements that he made regarding the Sudan conflict while there, the African Union has consistently affirmed its commitment to respect the sovereignty of Sudan. On February 14, 2025, the AU reiterated its dedication to upholding the territorial integrity and unity of Sudan, para 7. Yet just days later, on the 18th of February 2025, President Ruto allowed members and supporters of RSF and others to convene in his capital, Nairobi, with an aim to establish a parallel government in Sudan. This act not only contravenes AU principles but also erodes Kenya's standing as a peacemaker. It is essential to remind President Ruto that his own country, Kenya, whom he owes a duty of care, faces numerous internal challenges including youth unemployment, poverty, demands for transparency issues that require his utmost attention. How can he claim to mediate Sudanese affairs when he has never experienced the scale of violence currently unfolding in Sudan? The unpatriotic Sudanese people, or the patriotic Sudanese people, are more than capable of addressing their own challenges, and a parallel government advocated by the participants of the meeting and hosted by President Ruto is not a priority. The priority is to stop fighting. The trail of actions taken by President Ruto represents an alarming trend of external interference that threatens to divide Sudan. Such behavior is explicitly prohibited. Now, we understand that even our Kenyan forces are uncomfortable with the operation of the Sudan paramilitary leaders here. There is a council of CDF within the continent that brings together the different commander that brings together different military chiefs in the country that that is actually raising the same issues with the military chiefs back in Kenya. What happened later, we saw Musalia Mudavadi giving some response, historical anecdotes, defending how Kenya is a peacemaker in the region, a position that is not agreed by many. Even though Musalia was at pains to try to explain and giving historical snippets on that. But if you want to know that Kenya is not honest on pursuing this peace, I will want you to look at this PS corrects Ngui, and I think this PS is emerging as a liability, as the other day Sifuna was attacking him. He's emerging as more of a liability. Probably because he speaks the English of the North, he tries to, to emblem the whites. I don't know. I've missed the right word. I realized in Ethiopia, when the SADC letter emerged, he issued a statement that never changed anything. It never helped the situation. In fact, he dismissed that letter from SADC. Now, when in the wake of this, there was an AI-generated video that was explaining, that was allegedly disguised as a genuine commentary by a CNN analyst, Farid Zakaria, on Kenyans on Kenya position on peace standing. And I want to believe that AI video, it was actually generated by the ministry officials, the ministry staff, tech staff back in Nairobi. So PS Korir shared that video, only for it to be flagged, and then he came out with a very long letter, very long statement that to me doesn't sound like even an apology. This is what he said. I sincerely apologize for the inadvertently posting an AI-generated video disguised as genuine commentary from Farid Zakaria of CNN on the search for peace in the Sudan conflict and Kenya's role in it. I regret any confusion this may have caused and thank everyone who flagged the video as deepfake. Our ministry has been working with partners and tech companies to explore the potential of watermarking AI-generated content to ensure that such materials does not pose as human-generated material. Additionally, we are designing, with the collaboration of partners and big tech companies, the School of AI Diplomacy, said at the Foreign Services Academy, a program I will attend and equip policymakers better to navigate these emerging challenges. My apologies once again and sincerely appreciate everyone's vigilance and correction and cadre. Now, the whole government did not realize that that was an AI-generated video. No, they knew. It was AI-generated, but they had to share it because they wanted to achieve an objective. Now, this is in bad taste. And even though the military seem to have raised questions about it, but this is really, really in bad taste. Because Ruto appears to be posturing as peace ambassador in the region, but while at it, he's pushing more of personal interest than national interest. There is one thing that we say. President Ruto is in contact with the RFS leaders. He's in individual capacity. But there are some things that when they happen in Nairobi, it's no longer about President Ruto. It's more about Kenya. And we should understand that countries are attached to their national interest than individual interest, that personal interest. The reason why even DR Congo might have not voted for Raila. Shekedi is a close friend to Raila, but he could not vote for Raila if Kenya is not serving its interest, because as a president, he must serve the interest of his country. So you must look at that. Ruto appears as a man who is posturing for peace in the continent, but in real sense, he's not pushing national interest. It is the interest of Kenya, Kenyan people, for peace to prevail in Sudan. But the way president is taking side with it, it is not advancing the need for peace. Kenya is creating more enemies, and we seem not to have learned from DRC. Now, there are countries who support Sudan. They're not going to be at peace with us. And bringing territorial threats, if we continue this way, people will start attacking us from some of the borders. And I think that is why the military and the team, the military bosses, are also raising questions on the legitimacy of such moves. Thank you.